In our previous lecture, we have understood protected access specifier. Now in this lecture, we will understand different ways to perform inheritance in C++. We can perform public inheritance, private inheritance, or protected inheritance. So without any further delay, let's get started with this lecture and let's see what are the topics. The first topic is public inheritance. First, we will understand what is public inheritance and what is its significance. Then we will understand private inheritance and protected inheritance. So these are the topics of this lecture. Let's start with the first one, public inheritance. Now, what is public inheritance? In public inheritance, public members of base class remain public in the derived class. Also, protected members of base class remain protected in the derived class. Apart from this, private members are not directly accessible. So here we can observe that public members of the base class remain public. Protected members of the base class remain protected in the derived class. So there is no change. And private members are not directly accessible because these members are private to the base class. We cannot access them directly in some other class. This is what we already know. So this is what public inheritance is. Now, through an example, let's understand how to perform public inheritance, and let's also understand what is its significance. Here is the example program. Here I have defined the class animal with public member function eat that allows us to display eating on the screen. This means here I am mimicking the behavior of an animal eating something. Now here I have defined this class dog which is inheriting from animal. And here I am performing public inheritance because the access specifier specified over here is public. This is the significance of this access specifier. Here we are performing public inheritance. This means animal is inherited publicly and therefore this public member function is treated as the public member function of this class also. So it seems like this function is defined in this class itself. There is no change. Here we also have this public member function bark that allows us to display barking on the screen. This means we are mimicking the behavior of a dog barking. Inside the main function, I have defined the object of the class dog, which is D. And through this object, I'm calling the eat function and the bark function. This is possible because eat function is also the public member function of this class dog. Therefore, it is possible to call this function through the object of this class. And that is why when we execute this program, we will get the output eating and barking. I hope this idea is completely clear to you. So this is what public inheritance is. Public members remain public in the derived class. Protected members remain protected in the derived class. Private members are inaccessible directly. I would also like to mention that public inheritance establishes a relationship between base class and derived class. Now, what does this mean? Let's understand this through this example. Here we have is a relationship between dog and animal. Dog is an animal. There is a relationship. Dog is an animal. To the outside world, it seems like there is no difference between animal and dog. That is why public member function remains public in the class dog as well. So this is what public inheritance is. When we want to establish a relationship between base class and derived class, then we use public inheritance. I hope this is clear to you. So with this, we have properly understood public inheritance. Therefore, we are done with the first topic. Now let's move to the second topic, where we will understand private inheritance. Now, what is private inheritance? In private inheritance, public members of base class becomes private in the derived class. Also, protected members of the base class becomes private in the derived class. And as usual, private members are not directly accessible. So here we can observe the change. Public members becomes private. Protected members becomes private. Private members are still inaccessible in the derived class. Now let's understand properly what is private inheritance and why it is useful through an example in C++. Here is the example program. Here I have defined this class engine with the public member function start that allows us to display engine started on the screen. This means here I am mimicking the behavior of engine getting started. Here we have this class car that is inheriting from the class engine. Here we have the private inheritance. Therefore, this public member function becomes the private member function of this class. This is the change we can observe. Here in this class, we have this public member function drive. We can call this member function through the object of this class. Inside this member function, we are calling the start function. It is possible. And through stdcout, here we are displaying car is driving. Now inside the main function, I have defined the object of the class car, which is C, and through this object, I am calling the drive function. Now when we execute this program, we will get the output engine started because of the start function, car is driving because of this stdcout statement. Now understand one thing. Private inheritance establishes is implemented through relationship. Now, what does this mean? Let's understand this through this example. Here, is implemented through relationship is established between engine and car. We can say car is implemented through engine. Car is not an engine, but car is implemented through engine. This means we want that the functionality of engine should be accessible to car, but we do not want that the engine of the car should be accessible to the outside world. This means through the object of the class car, we do not want that the outside world should be able to access the functionality of the engine class. If we try to call the start function through the object C, then we would not be able to do this, because now this function is the private function of this class, and therefore we cannot access this function through the object of the class car. I hope this idea is clear to you. So when we want to establish the is implemented through relationship between the base class and the derived class, then we set the derived class as private. This means we perform private inheritance. I hope this idea is clear to you. So with this, we have understood the private inheritance as well. This means we are done with the second topic also. Now let's move to the third topic to understand protected inheritance. In protected inheritance, public members of base class becomes protected in the derived class. Protected members of base class remain protected in the derived class, so there is no change here. And private members, as usual, are not directly accessible. So we can see that public members of base class changes to protected members in the derived class. This is what happens in case of protected inheritance. Now let's understand protected inheritance properly through an example program. Here we have this class library resource with public members ID and set ID. through the setID member function, we can set the ID with specific value. Here is the class book, which is inheriting from the library resource class. And here we have the protected inheritance. This means these public members are now treated as the protected members of this class. Here we also have these public member functions. We have register book function to register the ID of the specific book. We also have the show ID function that allows us to display the ID of the book. Inside the main function, I have defined the object B of class book, and through this object, I'm calling the register book function and the show ID function. This is possible because these are public member functions of this class. Now, if we try to call the setID function through the object B, then it is not possible because the setID function is now the protected member function of this class. Therefore, through the object of this class, we cannot access setID function. I hope this idea is clear to you. Now, when we execute this program, we will get the output as expected, book ID 101, because we have set the book ID to 101 with the help of register book function. Now, I want to mention this, that protected inheritance establishes is a relationship, but only for children. So it is different from public inheritance. We know in case of public inheritance also, we establish is a relationship. This means public members of the base class are treated as public members of the derived class, and therefore it is possible to call those members through the object of the derived class. But that is not the case in protected inheritance. Here we establish is a relationship, but only for children of the base class. We can say book is a library resource, but the outside world cannot access the members of this class. Understand, this class can access the members of this class, but not the outside world. So, is a relationship is established only for children. That is what we can say in case of protected inheritance. These members becomes protected in this class. Through the object of this class, we cannot access these members. This is what we can observe. I hope this idea is clear to you. Now you might be thinking that it seems like private inheritance and protected inheritance are kind of similar. There's no difference between the two. But that's not true. I would like to clarify this with the help of one addition in this example program. Let's try to imagine one more class called magazine. And let's say the magazine class is inherited from the class book. And there is also the protected inheritance. Because here we have the protected inheritance, these members are now treated as protected members of this class. And because magazine is inherited from this class, magazine class would be able to access these members as well. This is because protected members remain protected in the derived class. This is what we can see over here. Protected members of base class remain protected in the derived class. For the magazine class, the base class is the book class. In the book class, we have these protected members. These protected members remain protected members in the magazine class also. Therefore, magazine class would be able to access the members. Now, what about private inheritance? What happens if we replace this keyword by private? If we put private access specifier here, then these members become private members of this class. Now, what does this mean? Now, magazine class would not be able to access these members. Clearly because private members are not directly accessible in the derived class. I hope this idea is clear to you. So that's the difference between private inheritance and protected inheritance. And now we know when we should apply the protected inheritance, when we want to establish is a relationship, but only for the children. We do not want outside world to be able to access the public members of the base class. But children can access. So with this, we have understood protected inheritance properly. This means we are done with the last topic also, and we are done with this lecture. Okay, friends, this is it for now. Thank you for watching this lecture. I will see you in the next one.